Can love withdrawn really lead to compromise? The rain never stops in Port Harcourt. It claws at the windows, drowns the streets, and whispers secrets only the broken dare to hear. Pastor John Okorie knows those secrets intimately. By day, he stands in the pulpit, his voice a beacon of hope for a city drowning in despair. By night, he's a man unraveling, his hands stained with the wreckage of vows he can't keep, his soul splintered between the wife who hates him and the lover who owns him. 10 years ago, John and Grace were the couple everyone envied, a love forged in church pews, built on prayers and promises. But grief has a way of rotting even the holiest foundations. When their unborn child slipped away into silence, it took their marriage with it. Now Grace moves through their home like a ghost, her eyes hollow, her heart a locked door John can't breach. And in the shadows, Charity waits, soft smiles and serpentine whispers, her touch a match to the kindling of his loneliness. One storm-lashed afternoon, the lie implodes. Grace, still clutching a lunchbox meant to mend what's shattered, freezes in the hallway as Charity's voice coils from the office. "I'm pregnant, John. It's yours." The crash of glass isn't just a sound. It's a verdict. What happens when a man of God becomes a prisoner of his own sin? When does a wife's rage turn to vengeance? When does love curdle into a weapon? The walls of Port Harcourt's most revered church will tremble. Secrets will bleed. And 3 lives will collide in a firestorm of betrayal, desperation, and a truth too explosive to contain. This isn't just a story about adultery. It's about the monsters we become when faith fails us. Are you ready to meet yours? Who will survive the storm? Please subscribe to this channel to support us. It's free. Thank you. John and Grace's love once felt invincible. They met at a bustling church conference in Lagos, her laughter slicing through the noise like sunlight. He was a rising star, charismatic, devout, a pastor in the making with a smile that calmed tempests. Grace was his rock, her quiet strength grounding him. They married within a year, dizzy with dreams of a big family and a faith-filled life. Early days shimmered, Sunday sermons, shared prayers, plans for children. But time eroded their joy. Fertility tests piled up, each negative result a quiet dagger. Grace's hope faded, and John's reassurances grew brittle. After a decade, a miracle, Grace was pregnant. John wept, picturing tiny hands and a future they could hold. They clung to that dream until it shattered. One stormy afternoon, Grace crumpled in the kitchen, blood staining her dress. John raced her to the hospital, her hand cold in his, but the doctor's grim faces said it all. The miscarriage broke them, turning their home into a mausoleum, love buried under grief. John sought refuge in work, pastoring a growing flock in Port Harcourt and running a nonprofit that swallowed his days. It was easier than facing the ice at home. Grace had withdrawn, her eyes vacant, her touch withheld. Her silence was a wall he couldn't breach, and every attempt to reach her ended in sharp words or cold stares. Their once warm home became a battlefield, each glance a wound. John felt like a ghost, unseen in his own life. That's when Charity entered his orbit. A volunteer with a warm smile. She was always there, planning potlucks, debating theology over coffee. At first, it was innocent, a flicker of light in his gray world. But as Grace's distance grew, so did John's emptiness. One night, after counseling broken families while his own crumbled, he sat alone in his office, the weight crushing him. Charity appeared, a mug of tea steaming in her hands. "You look like you need this," she said, settling across from him. They talked for hours, faith, loss, and the loneliness he couldn't voice. As she stood to leave, Charity's fingers brushed his arm, lingering. Heat surged through him, a jolt of life in his numb world. He pulled back, muttering about paperwork, but her touch echoed in his mind, a forbidden melody. The moment was a crack in his armor, one he tried to ignore. But Charity's presence lingered, her kindness a contrast to Grace's frost. John buried himself deeper in work, delivering sermons with forced conviction, but the emptiness gnawed. At home, Grace's bitterness sharpened, snapping over small things, like a late dinner or a forgotten errand. Each fight pushed John further from her, closer to the edge. He prayed for strength, but his prayers felt hollow, drowned by the ache for something to fill the void. Charity's smile, her gentle words, began to feel like a lifeline, though he knew it was a line he shouldn't cross. Temptation struck hard one night after a late prayer meeting, the church silent and still. John sat on a pew, exhaustion dragging at him. Charity slid in beside him, their shoulders grazing. "You give so much to everyone," she murmured, her voice a caress. "Who's there for you?" Her eyes locked on his, dark and searching. His pulse raced. Her perfume, jasmine, intoxicating, filled the air, and for a reckless moment, he imagined pulling her close, tasting the comfort she offered. Grace's face flashed in his mind, a ghostly warning. He lurched to his feet. "I need to lock up," he stammered, fleeing to safety. Charity watched him go, her lips curving faintly, her presence a shadow he couldn't shake. That night, he lay awake beside Grace, her breathing distant, and wondered how he'd come so close to betrayal. The second temptation came on a Sunday, Grace's bitterness from a morning fight still stinging, burnt toast sparking a war of words. John hid in his office, sermon half written, when Charity knocked. She wore a sundress, her hair loose, a stack of hymnals her excuse. They talked, tension crackling. When she reached for his hand, her fingers tracing his knuckles, he froze. Her touch was fire, melting his defenses. He shut his eyes, letting it sear him. When he opened them, she was closer, her breath warm on his cheek. "John," she whispered, and he leaned in, their lips a heartbeat apart. The phone rang, Grace, curt and cold, asking when he'd be home. He recoiled, shame flooding him. "This can't happen," he rasped, shoving past her. Charity didn't flinch. "I'll wait," she said, her voice a quiet vow. John stumbled through the rest of the day, guilt and desire warring within him, his vows fraying under the weight of his loneliness. The fall was inevitable. Grace's grief had turned their home into a battlefield, her every glance a wound. John felt invisible. A ghost haunting his life. No matter how he tried to make things right, Grace always proved difficult and distant. That Friday, Charity arrived at his office with paperwork, but her eyes held no pretense. She shut the door, the click loud in the silence, and stepped toward him. "Stop fighting it," she said, her hands sliding up his chest. He grabbed her wrists to push her away, but his resolve cracked. She pressed her lips to his, soft, then hungry, and he broke. He kissed her back, desperate, hands tangling in her hair as they stumbled against the desk. Papers flew, a lamp crashed, and he didn't care. It wasn't love, it was release, a flood after a drought. They tore at each other. Her nails on his back, his mouth on her neck, the world shrinking to this wild, forbidden moment. Afterward, he slumped in his chair, guilt clawing at him as she fixed her dress. "This changes everything," she said, and he knew she was right. The affair spiraled, stolen kisses behind locked doors, her body pressed against his in dark corners, late-night texts he deleted with shaking hands. John hated himself, but Charity's pull was a drug. He tried to stop, but her tears, "I need you, John," kept him chained. Each encounter deepened his shame, yet he couldn't break free. At home, Grace's coldness grew sharper, her nagging a constant reminder of their fractured bond. John's sermons faltered, his prayers empty. He was a pastor, a leader, yet he betrayed everything he stood for. The guilt was a weight he carried alone, a secret that gnawed at his soul. Charity's presence became both torment and solace, her whispers a reminder of his fall. He was drowning, and the shore seemed further away with every step he took into the abyss. A warning came at a church retreat held for the senior pastors of the church, shattering John's fragile denial. A grizzled senior pastor cornered him by the fire pit, eyes piercing. God showed me you're treading on dangerous ground. Repent of whatever it is before it's too late. It's a chain around your neck. Break it, or it'll drag you to hell. John's stomach churned, sweat beading on his brow, but he nodded, vowing to end it. Back in Port Harcourt, though, Charity's whispers and wandering hands drowned out the promise. He tried to pull away, but her pleas held him fast. Meanwhile, Grace began to stir. Her friend Sarah saw the cracks and spoke plainly over coffee. You're killing him with your anger, Grace. If you don't fight for him, someone else will. How could you deprive your own husband of intimacy for a good 2 years? Don't you know you're killing him? How did you intend to have another child if you go on like this? The words hit hard. Grace saw herself, a bitter shell. Punishing John for their shared loss wasn't good enough and not the solution. She resolved to try again, starting small. She made his favorite lunch, roast beef on jollof rice, and drove to the church, her heart pounding with hope. As Grace neared John's office, she heard voices. She paused, then froze as Charity's words sliced through. I'm pregnant, John. It's yours. The lunchbox slipped, shattering on the tile. Grace stifled a sob and fled, her world in pieces. Inside, Charity issued an ultimatum. Tell Grace in 7 days, or I'll go public, she said, her tone cold. John reeled, trapped in a nightmare he'd built. Grace didn't confront him that night, she couldn't. She simmered, rage sparking, while John unraveled. He barely ate, barely slept, his sermon stumbling as guilt consumed him. Charity pressed harder, demanding money to stay silent, her warmth replaced by steel. Grace's pain festered, but Sarah intervened again, fierce. You let this happen, Grace. Fix it, or lose him finally, either to her or death. Grace nodded, unable to bear to lose John to either of the two, steeling herself for battle, her heart a tangle of betrayal and determination to reclaim what was hers. That night, John's phone buzzed as he lay beside Grace, feigning sleep. He slipped to the hallway, answering in a whisper. Have you told her? Charity demanded. Before he could speak, Grace loomed behind him, snatching the phone. I know everything, she hissed, ending the call. John turned pale and fell to his knees. I'm sorry, he choked, tears spilling. I was lost. I failed you, failed God. Grace towered over him, trembling. A pastor, cheating. With her. Your secretary. But as he wept, she saw the ruin of the man she loved. Her anger cracked, revealing the pain beneath. We fix this, she said, voice breaking. Together. They both faced Charity as one, united, John owning the child was his but offering only support. Grace stood tall, her gaze a challenge. Charity backed down, her power gone. The church learned, whispers became a storm, and John was suspended. Charity was sacked. But Grace stayed, her hand in his as they faced the wreckage. One night, they sat in their living room, the silence no longer a barrier but a bridge. It wasn't whole, wasn't healed, but it was theirs. Trust was a ruin they'd rebuild, brick by brick, with time and grace as their foundation. John's suspension stung, but Grace's presence was a lifeline, a reminder that redemption was possible. They planned for the child's arrival, agreeing to take custody and let Charity face her life. The city of Port Harcourt moved on, its rains washing away the echoes of their scandal, but for John and Grace, the journey was just beginning. Their love, scarred but stubborn, held fast against the storm. They'd lost much, innocence, trust, the dream of a perfect life, but they'd gained something raw and real, a chance to start again, together, in the shadow of their mistakes. Thanks for watching and listening. Let me know your thoughts about the story in the comments section, like and share, turn on your notification bell, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.